Hi, welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm Shannon Eliot. Today we will be examining real questions from real people about what stresses them out during the holidays. Alan Stein has worked in the mental health field for more than 30 years. He holds a master's degree in public health and is a licensed marriage, family, and child therapist. He is also a 23-year veteran and ranked as a second-degree black belt in Aikido, a Japanese martial art. BJ North is a certified facilitator for wellness recovery action planning and consultant. She helps to foster dialogue within and between community agencies around the world. She also pursues a lifelong learning policy of continuous self-improvement. Welcome, Alan, and welcome, BJ. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So we recently visited the Oakland Farmers Market and asked people on the streets what stresses them out during the holidays. And our first question is about the seasonal task of gift giving. Let's take a look.
My name is Randall Hughes. I'm with Oaktown Jerk, a beef jerky company. And my question is, how do we avoid the stresses during the holidays of feeling as though we have to buy a gift for someone?
So one of the things I think about during the holidays when I'm asked to give a gift or required to give a gift, and I'm not really sure which it is oftentimes, is the importance of coming together and being with the people that you care about, being with your family, being with your friends, and be less focused on the material aspect of how a gift makes coming together better. And so I think having that conversation with family members or friends is a way of opening up the possibilities of thinking about the holidays in a different way.
And how does that relate to the definition of a gift? We all probably have different definitions of what a gift really is. Sometimes it's material, sometimes it's something more spiritual and from the soul. What do you think about that, BJ?
I think that a gift, if we could just be in the present moment and think about the gift is my family showing up, the gift is that we have this time today to share with each other, the gift is we're just redefining what that even means. Because I think when we put material things in front of sharing with each other, that always then becomes the thing that's between us, is the materialistic thing in the moment. So I would always say that the gift is to look each other in the eye and to be able to see who that person is in a moment.
You know, one of the other things I think about is that oftentimes when we come together during the holidays, we are seeing either family or friends so infrequently that they kind of helicopter in for the holidays. And I'm often not sure, you know, what Aunt Phoebe or Uncle Jim really likes. And so it puts me in the position of having to guess, because you really can't ask. I don't feel comfortable asking like Aunt Phoebe, so what do you want, right?
And then she could say, well, how would you not know? I'm insulted by you not knowing.
Exactly. It's like, well, you know, you've been in my life for 25 years. I expect that you would. It creates the possibility of tension where the material object is something which creates that lack of intimacy, I think. And so my struggle always is to figure out how to make these moments more intimate and more, as BJ said, more about the spirit of giving yourself during the holidays to each other rather than exchanging gifts.
Let's take a look at another question, this time from a mom.
Hi, my name's Hillary, this is Stella, and this is Leo. My question is how you have enough time for yourself during the craziness of parties and school events, and just as a busy mom, setting aside time so you can be relaxed and happy during that time.
I think it's really planning it out. Like, I have a kid and I raised a lot of my nieces and nephews, and really thinking about the parties and learning to plan what I was doing and making sure the kids come along so there's no stressor. So when I'm going somewhere, making sure that I've thought through what it's going to be about for the kids and myself at that moment, wherever we're going. And what stresses me out during that time mostly is that I'm worried about what's going to happen in a space that I haven't even ventured to yet. So if I can be just comfortable with myself, like that is going to really help me when I'm going to these parties, when I'm doing things with my kids, is really to just make sure that I'm comfortable in that moment, with just being with the kids, whatever is.
And let's say you have a spouse. How can you have a conversation with your spouse to maybe divvy up responsibilities and duties and share some equality in that burden?
Well, that's a conversation, I've had often with my wife not just during the holidays, but in general. I think that, how you reach agreement about what your role and responsibility is relative to raising kids or, throwing an event during the holidays is the degree to which you can have an open and honest conversation and be clear about what each other's expectations are, is the degree to which I think you're less likely to fall, down on the side of creating conflict where there doesn't need to be conflict. If I'm clear about what you expect from me and vice versa, it's easier to negotiate those times when there's more murkiness. I mean, one of the things I always say to my wife is like, let's get clear, let's get moving, and let's stay focused. And if we can just remind ourselves of what our agreements are around getting clear, getting moving, and staying focused, it's easier to pull this kind of stuff off, whether it's about raising kids or, convening a meeting or having 27 people sit down for Thanksgiving dinner. And to enlist the support of other people who are coming, right? Because it's not just about you doing it, it's about a shared experience.
Just making sure everybody has something they're doing. Even the kids, even inviting those kids in to be a part of that planning, the stress, the whole business that happens with the holidays, is to make sure that everybody's on board. Having a list and asking people to sign up. So I'm not responsible for all of it.
I think with kids especially, I mean, my kids are older now, but when they were growing up, one of the things that I always enlisted them to do was to be in the kitchen with me and to cook, so that they felt like they were giving something of themselves to whoever the guests were who were coming. And it was also like a real, from a dad's perspective, it was really a teaching moment. It's like being able to say, well, this is actually how you chop an onion, and now they're both great cooks.
Now we'll hear from a time-pressed student who is always at the center of planning her family's activities.
Hi, my name is Femi. I am a student and I'm extremely busy. I tend to be the organizer in my family, and during the holidays I'm also required to organize all our family gatherings. I would like to know how I can empower my family members to organize themselves so I can take some of that burden off of me.
I think one way that Phoebe can help herself with that is just to make a list and be powerful in what she's going to do. Like, this is what I'm doing this year. These are the things that need to be done. And I'm wondering if you just really elicit everybody else's help. Invite people into the process of helping, because once we are identified as a certain thing as a family member of what we do, people will have us do it all the time. And it's at some point I have to stand up and say, okay, this time I want it to be just not only me. I'm going to take some of the stress off, and I would like other people to do it. So how do I invite my family into doing this? Pick something off the list that you love, and let's do this together. Let's make this a we instead of a Phoebe moment.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, being able to say to, an aunt that, I know that you love flowers and you do great floral arrangements, so, can I count on you to do that? Really identifying those aspects of your family or friends' lives where they feel like this is something I do really well, and then inviting that as part of the communal experience as a way of acknowledging who they are, but also acknowledging the additive quality of their contribution to the planned experience. And I think BJ's correct. I mean, the degree to which you really can kind of break down all of the tasks and expectations and communicate those, even though Phoebe has to be the one who is pulling it together. Sure. She doesn't have to be responsible for it all. And part of the psychology of that is actually thinking about it as a group or a community or a communal experience, as opposed to this is the experience that I'm orchestrating, and giving ownership to other people for the way in which that particular family event unfolds. And not to do it at the last minute, because if you do it at the last minute, that can be a problem.
The other thing as well is that something else happens when I share that experience with other people. People, maybe next year, everybody's like, oh, what can I do this year? Because it was such a wonderful thing that happened that, that I'm not taking the whole thing on myself, that I invited other people in. Different relationships will change.
Yes.
You know, maybe it's
Yes.
going to be a different dynamic. Maybe there's not going to be stress. Maybe everyone's looking forward to Phoebe coming up with the list this time, see what she's created so I can be a part of it.
So this next question involves something we've all probably experienced at one time or another. Let's watch.
My name is Benji, and my question is, how do I get along with relatives I don't normally get along with when it's the holidays?
So I always think about this in two ways. One is, you know, I've had a long-term relationship with relatives, and on some level I tend to set up expectations in my own mind, and I know that my clients as well do that when they express this kind of concern in therapy about family reunions or family gatherings or holidays. And the first thing I always think of is, what is it about yourself that you're willing to change in order to build on or change the character of the relationship that you've had with this person over the years? There's an old kind of adage in family systems work that systems are created to produce exactly the outcomes you're getting. So if you don't change your part of the system, you're going to wind up at a family gathering getting exactly what the system creates, which is, in your mind, this difficulty, this challenge in having relationships be more positive than they have been in the past. So think about, what are you willing to give in order to get something different in these relationships?
Even identifying in the moment for ourselves, what is the trigger? Why don't I like this person? Like, I think, you know, we have to take responsibility for whatever we've held. And like you said, these have happened over years, and we're bringing it into the present moment. And how do we show up when I am experiencing meeting one of those family members that I really didn't want to meet? I know that it's a story that I had, and they probably have no idea about it at all, that I have this thing with them. They just noticed that I pull back or whatever, and it was about learning about what that was for me and being able to honor that part in me and then talk to that family member. And one of the biggest things in my life today, and in the lives of a lot of people in my family, is really to have that connection again. Because I break the ice with the people that I didn't want to see. What happens is there's something that loosened up in my family, that we're all talking, we are excited to see each other now. So it takes me, the change happens with me, and when I can change myself, I could probably change the dynamics of what's happening in my family around those gatherings as well.
Did you ever find that having that conversation backfired on you, or has it pretty much been an entirely positive experience?
It's been entirely positive, because I think I go energetically, I have to change that too. I have to be really be in that moment of, yes, I want this to change, because if I'm just doing it, just
Going through the motions.
going through the motions, they're going to feel it. It's going to be felt in that dynamic. So the thing for me is to really honor the person that I've not honored for a long time. And when I honor those, it's been great. It's been great because I've been real about it, because, you know, and I honor my son, and now he talks to everybody. There's a connection that happens now. Instead of him going to play basketball or being outside or just not talking to people or not wanting to be there, he comes and he
Sounds like he
looks
looks forward to it.
That's what's happening, yes.
Yeah.
So in addition to video questions, we also have some email questions from folks throughout Alameda County. The first one is from Simon in Castro Valley. He writes, I lost a member of my family this year, and my own feelings of sadness are magnified during the holiday season. How can I get through this difficult time of year?
That is a great question. And I always think that used to be an anniversary trigger, you know, for a lot of people. And what I ask people now is like to change just to remember that person, honor that person for being in your life, and how can we change, instead of that person being gone, having something around that, you know, everybody coming over and bringing some story or something about that person who's now not available in body anymore. Because it's amazing when we can just continually bring that person, just think of all the good things, because maybe the person isn't there anymore, but they are, because I remember that person every year, and it's kind of sad. But how do we change that? How do we change it to think about, oh my God, this is great. This is the day Aunt Phoebe or whoever it is left or isn't with us, but I'm gonna honor that person's memory by doing something special, just changing it around just a little bit.
I think also just remembering that grieving is a process. It's not, it's not something that has a beginning and an end. So it's not as though we kind of get through it and it's over. So being able to remember this person that the holiday is triggering a sense of loss from by acknowledging and appreciating those emotions, those feelings that we have, not assuming that they're going to go away, but figuring out a way in which you can acknowledge that in celebration of that person's life. I think that marking that time is a way of both honoring your own feelings, but also honoring the spirit of the person who has passed. I have a wedding coming up in my life. My daughter is getting married, and I've been playing around with, you know, the father's speech at the wedding, and she's only known one grandparent. And so part of that is acknowledging at this large community gathering the fact that there have been other grandparents in spirit that are in the room with us, and to be able to give them a place in the community or at the table so that it's not unspoken. Getting it out in the open and speaking about it is a way of taking that grief and holding it in a way which is positive, I think.
Well said.
So our second email question is from Renee in Oakland, and she writes, my extended family is half Republican and half Democrat, and every holiday gathering devolves into one big political debate. How can I manage my own wellness during this time as well as the peace in my family?
Well, it couldn't be, I mean, given what we're going through as a country and the polarization of Republicans, Democrats, that's a really important question because especially during this particular historical moment, it's a question that really begs for a thoughtful and meaningful way of understanding differences. One of the ways that BJ and I have talked about this in prior sessions is by actually having, turning it into kind of a game so that the Republicans might take a Democratic position and talk about it from the perspective of a Democrat and vice versa, so that you can really, you know, proverbially kind of walk in that other person's shoes and understand from their perspective what are the values that drive these particular political positions, and to, in doing that, become really curious about how that value or that particular policy or that particular issue is something that a relative might feel so adamant about, and to try through that sense of curiosity to begin to unpack that a little bit. So it's not an ideological or it's not a polarizing conversation, even though people are going to hold different opinions. It's a way of unpacking it in a way that gets people to get a little bit deeper in terms of why they hold it and what the purpose of holding that position is for them. How does it create meaning in their life?
It's a mutual learning experience.
Hopefully.
And inviting them into a process of what you think and why you have that thought about being Republican or Democrat. You know, make it where I'm doing an invitation instead of being set in one way or the other. Well, why are you Republican? What do you see? You know, just really have curiosity about what the other family member is holding, because I really want to know. I really love you. I don't want this to be a line in the sand, but really, you know, inviting them to do something. Maybe even setting time where we get to do this, we get to debate this for a half an hour, and then if we could just let it go so we can show up as a family. But to say it, not to like let that just happen, because you know it's going to happen. You know they're going to talk about Republican and Democratic stuff. And so the thing is to say it and say we're going to have this certain time. We'll talk about it then, and then we'll let it go so we can visit with each other.
Great. So our next question is from Chester in Berkeley, and he writes, "This year I won't be able to return home for the holidays, and I'm really missing my family. What can I do to keep myself from feeling lonely and depressed?"
Something, we're in the age of social media, cell phones, telephones, video casting, Skyping. Just to maybe set up a time where Chester can see his family doing Skype or something like that. Maybe even sending a video home or sending him a video so he could plug it in, or a CD into a computer or something like that. Just setting some time aside so he can be able to maybe use the social media that's available.
And how does seeing one's face as opposed to one's voice make a difference in comfort levels?
I would say just, seeing the person and seeing that person talk. I think sometimes on the phone things get lost, the energy, how the
Facial
person's looking,
expressions.
our body movements, all of that plays a part of what we're conveying in the moment. And so, it would be great just to set up a video, and do that, because I think it's great when I can see you. I really want to see you. And that's why I'm missing you, because I miss seeing you.
I also think doing it on a more continuous basis, setting up those times for actually being in relationship. If the media is the method, then doing it on a more regular basis so it doesn't feel like there's so much pressure during the holidays and everything is broken until the holidays, and then I'm going to set up the Skype. I mean, personal example for me is my son just spent a year abroad in India and Vietnam, and we set up a regular schedule for him when he was traveling so that we could actually see him and talk to him. And not just see him and talk to him, but see who he was with and who were the friends he was making. So we felt brought along, and he felt like we were still connected.
Like you were there and involved in his life.
Yeah, they were still involved in his life, and it allowed us to be curious about, so who's that person that just walked behind, your Skype, and tell me their story. And so he would start talking, and I think you can do that with families as well, especially given how much of a diaspora families have gone through. It's rare that your biological family stays in the same place, lives in the same city over a long period of your life. And so leveraging those new ways of using social media to stay in contact instead of just thinking about getting on a plane allows us to be connected over time as opposed to just once a year or twice a year when it's the holiday season.
So our final question of today's episode is from Weba in Oakland. She writes, "I'm French-Algerian and my husband is American, both with very different traditions. How can we accommodate different cultures both around the meal and with regards to spending during the holiday season?"
Okay, this is an amazing question because, cultures are amazing. And just knowing that I'm creating a culture with someone who's different from my culture, just in the relationship of, I forgot, the Algerian and
American.
American.
French-Algerian and American.
Yeah, really, just being willing to say what my culture is and the things I love about it, and sharing it instead of making it a difference. Bring it together and make a culture out of the family, that family unit. Because there's a lot of things. We meet people in the street and we have different perspectives of a lot of different things, and sharing what those perspectives are, ones I'm willing to hold and ones I'm willing to let go of, because I'm creating a new culture with my family now. That is how we come together, instead of holding those strong beliefs that we were passed down from generations to generation. Instead of holding them, to really make this last, whatever's between us, and not make the culture be something that separates us in any way. But how do we come together with that, with the differences, and learn from one another?
I mean, I think it's just a great opportunity to have each of the members of this family, this couple, tell the story of the holidays as they experienced it over time to each other about their families, and what about the way in which they celebrated, whether it was the food or the music or the dress or what have you that is so much a part of who they are, both as individuals, but also they got married for probably some pretty good reasons,
Yeah.
that they were attracted to each other. And so learning about that culture from the perspective of their personal kind of narrative, and then to have them make some conscious choices, as BJ is saying, about, well, what do you want to bring forward into our family as we begin to create a blend, something which is different than our individual parts, but is greater than the sum of those parts. And so that conversation and that storytelling can be a way in which they deepen the intimacy in their own relationship, but also as their family comes together, that would be reflected in the choices they've made. And then they can tell that story. And then that story tells another story. It's like playing it forward, right? So I would encourage them to talk to each other from that narrative perspective.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining me today, Alan and BJ. It has been a pleasure, and I'm going to take some of your advice that I learned today, so I thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
If you would like to make your own action plan to deal with life stressors, check out the book Wellness Recovery Action Plan by Dr. Mary Ellen Copeland. To manage your thoughts and get rid of worry, fear, and panic, check out the Mindfulness and Acceptance Workbook for Anxiety by John Forsyth and Georg Eifert. For mindfulness videos and other resources on mental health, visit the DBT Self-Help website at dbtselfhelp.com. If you're looking for counseling and emotional support in Alameda County, call the Crisis Support Line at 1-800-309-2131. To find a peer-run listening line near you, staffed by people in recovery themselves, visit warmline.org. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.